What up, guys? This is Nick with No Filter Reviews. So today I'm going to be going over what it's been like for me being 10 years out of the military this month. You know, kind of the challenges that I've faced, and also just things if you're thinking about getting out, you need to think through so that you have a educated, thought process. These are my opinions. This is my experiences. Experiences differ for many people. So when I was in the Air Force. I was in from 08 to 2014. I was in IT, and that's what I do now. So I got very lucky with my AFSC. It had transferable skills out here. I got out with just my associates, my CCAF, and I started working at a little healthcare system, and at the first place I lived. So I want to tell you guys, just to start, it's, for me, the hardest part was not the financial pieces and not the insurance and the things they try to recruit you on. As you're getting out, they try to tell you these things, and they use fear tactics to try to get you to re-enlist. And a lot of times you're being told, it's terrible out there, you don't want to be a statistic, blah, 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 blah. You're being told by people that don't know any different. They've been in the service for 18 years. They have no clue what it's like to be on the outside. So they don't really have a point of reference or really any wisdom to share, because all they know is the military, and a lot of them get so bought in that they're just going to try to keep you no matter what. So that's one thing. So when I got out, I started working. I kind of lined up that job for myself. I started calling that health system probably 6 months before I got out. To start the conversations, I put in resumes, and then when I got a hold of HR, I was calling them every week until I got out. So when it was getting closer for me to get out, I kind of aligned the stars, and I was actually able, they called me and said, hey, you're within 30 days, are you interested in this position? And it was like a desktop support position, very junior level base. I think I started at 21 bucks an hour, which wasn't much getting out. I got out as a staff sergeant, so I took a little bit of a pay cut to get out. And I bought my first house, which was like a fixer-upper in a small town that I lived prior to going in the service. So there was a lot of changes very rapidly. Also, me and my wife had a son. He was I think 6 months or less than a year old, or maybe right at a year when we moved. So there was a lot of stress there. But so that happened. The things that I wish they would have tried to recruit me on, camaraderie. When you're in the military, and I know if you guys are watching this and you're a veteran, you understand, there is a certain level of camaraderie that cannot be replaced in the civilian world. You guys are in it together. It doesn't matter if you've never met the person in the room with you. You have more in common with them than most people do in their day-to-day lives. You've been through boot camp together. You've been through tech school or training. You've been through deployments. You've been through PT. You've been through so many different things. Even without having conversations with them, you have stuff in common with them. So at my base, I was in the Midwest, and we had a good group of people. I mean, there was a lot of work, but we had barbecues, and they would come over. We'd go to the gym together and all that stuff. And that was a huge gap for me when I got out, and that was very difficult. So that's number one, is the camaraderie aspect just doesn't exist out here, from my perspective, as much as the military. So that's number one. Number two is, I think a lot of employers relate, if they're not veterans, they kind of relate military service to G.I. Joe or deployments, and a lot of jobs in the service are just like civilian jobs. I mean, you're doing the same job, you just have some made-up job code or some made-up thing, right? Like desktop support, we called it client systems, which out here it's like field services or desktop support or help desk, right? So when you're getting out and you're writing your resume, make sure to try to really crosswalk that language from military to civilian, and that'll help you with your resume writing, because there's a GI Joe aspect, or they've watched too many movies or something. A lot of them don't really understand. So there's that aspect. Number 3, your leadership skills in the service are misunderstood out in the civilian world a lot. Most leaders out here, like in both organizations that I've worked for since I've been out, they're like in their 40s and 50s, right? They're not young, and it took them years to get into those roles. So they don't quite comprehend how a mid-20s kid had troops and had responsibilities, and you were, like, I was a supervisor and I was an operations supervisor, so I managed multiple crews and organized computer repairs and phone repairs for an entire base. But they just kind of view you as young, and I don't know, it's a different mentality. So those are things to keep in mind. Like, like I said, everybody's experience is different. This is just mine. So about 8 months into my first job, I actually took a promotion and got on another team. And at that point, I started doing my bachelor's. So I was taking one online class, and I was taking full advantage of the GI Bill, and they were actually paying me rent money. So, like, they were paying me rent money, and I was going and paying the school, which was sweet. And I think it's E5 with dependents BAH rating. There's a calculation based on how many classes and things of that nature, and that's obviously subject to change. So by the time you see this video, it could change. But understand those benefits, because those are huge. And so I started, going to school for my bachelor's. I ended up finishing that, and then I went for my master's. And so I got my master's degree. I got promoted again into a management role. And that was great on the professional side, but again, kind of lacking the camaraderie. I'm always kind of pursuing that, trying to get that back, and that's been a big struggle for me, is trying to fill that gap with kind of what you had in the service as far as the people. Because from the service perspective, I didn't enjoy the service. I enjoyed the people and serving the people that worked underneath me, and I really couldn't stand, like, the ranks above me. A lot of them, there were some really good ones, but for the majority, it just seemed that, for one, people volunteer to get promotions. They try to work under the commander, or they don't really, like, some of the top people that I knew didn't even really know our job. So it was hard to hard for me to respect them, and hard for the troops to respect them. And so, and they would, like, the pettiest stuff, they would just, it was kind of silly, looking back, how really they were not qualified to do much of anything. They just happened to stay in long enough and just keep moving up the ranks and volunteering and just kissing ass, basically. And I just was never about that. I made E5, and I got kind of burnt out, and then I was just really I loved the people beneath me, but I could not work. Like, even my peers would drive me nuts because they wouldn't take care of their people, and from a leadership perspective, you're supposed to be a servant to your people, and that drive me absolutely insane. So that was also a motivation to get out too, is I didn't want to become some crusty old E7 that, just basically skating by until retirement. I saw a lot of them like that. Saw some good ones too, though, so don't get me wrong, there's good people too, but so there's that. Another thing to keep in mind is the VA loan is huge, especially with house prices right now and interest rates. So when I bought my first house, I actually, it was cheaper for me to buy a house than it was for me to get into an apartment, because I paid for an inspection and the VA covered everything else. I didn't have to put anything down. And if I would have gotten an apartment or rented somewhere, I would have had to get first month's deposit. There would have been a bunch more fees. So it was cheaper for me to buy a house than it was actually for me to rent, which is huge. So, and the VA vouches for a percentage of the loan, so you don't have to put any down, which is also crazy. But I will say overall, there's money to be made on the outside. So if you see this video and you're looking to get out of the service, and you have a good AFSC, or you have your degree or some certs and stuff like that, you're trying to line yourself up, obviously drop a comment down below and I'll respond with another video to try to help address any questions or concerns that you have. But it's not that hard out here. I mean, really, both places that I've worked, people are putting in generally, they put in 60% effort. Right, when you're in the military, you're always taught to put in 110%, 110%, 110%. So most civilians haven't been challenged like that. So they really just put in 60% effort, and if you're putting in 100% effort, you're above them. It's easy for you to outshine them. And it's really not that much for you to do if you're in that mentality, because you're so used to it. As long as you keep the cadence going and you don't stoop down to their level, you'll definitely outshine them and promote fast. That's just how it worked for me. And when I was in the service, I never got marked down. I always gave my best. I always had high PT scores, and that translated out here. I've seen people get out and fall on their face because they weren't putting in the effort in the service, and they weren't doing what they were supposed to in the service. So what happens? They get out and they do the same thing. But that's a motivation issue, and that's an individual issue. But I really hope you found this video educational for you. I know, if you're in right now and you're watching this video and you're almost out and you don't know what to do, it is a very scary moment for people. I totally understand that. I would encourage you to really do your own assessments, figure out who you are, take a look at your career while you were in the service, and figure out if you were motivated, a high marking troop, if you always exceed expectations, and understand that you're going to get advice from people getting out that have no clue, that are literally taught from day one to keep people in. And that's just how some people operate. The best NCOs and the best officers that you're going to have around you getting out are the ones that are going to encourage you to do what you want to do, and they will help you get out if that's what you want to do. The worst ones will try to just, don't get out, you don't be a statistic, blah, 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 blah. They're going to project their fear of getting out and make you feel like you can't make it. So prepare yourself. Start looking around at local businesses, local companies where you want to be. So find the place where you want to live when you get out. Do investigations on what the job market looks like, and figure out what companies actually employ the most people, and start reaching out to their HR department. Put in a resume just to get a call back, and then start building that relationship with their recruiting office and their HR department, and that will give you a leg up. If you're 6 months out, put in an application. Just say, hey, I'm 6 months out. I just wanted to let you know that I'm showing interest. Can I contact you on a monthly or weekly basis? I feel like I have the skill set that I could provide your organization. I have a valuable skill set I could provide your organization, and I want to be a part of that, and have those conversations, and things will work out for you. Just show some motivation, and you'll be just fine. And also, if you're watching this video and you want to stay in and do your 20, more power to you. I respect that decision too. But this is my reflection of being out 10 years, actually this month, actually in 10 days. It'll be 10 years that I've been out of the Air Force. So I hope you find this video valuable to you. Please subscribe, share, if you've got veterans that are getting out and they need some advice, or they're scared, or whatever that looks like. Happy to do that. And if there's something more specific you guys want, drop a comment. I'll reply. I'll do whatever I can to help you guys. So I hope you have a great day, and hit me up. Peace.